Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Open Book interview series featuring conversations with authors about the communities, connections, and moments that shape their careers. I'm here today with Steve Clair, the author of the children's books, The GOAT series. We've been friends for quite some time and have collaborated in lots of different ways, so I'm so excited to have you on as an author now. Steve, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and your book?
That was a great intro. Well, I don't even know where to begin with the GOAT series. I'll just begin with saying what they are. They are biographies of the greatest athletes of all time, and the main character in each book is a goat in a world of humans.
It's the coolest idea. Remember when you first had it and you were like, somebody had to have had this idea before.
Yeah, and listen, I'm going to start with this. 8 years ago, I had an idea for a children's book. 6 years ago, I started learning how to write children's books. 4 years ago, that idea changed into something different but the same concept of the goats. 2 years ago, I decided if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it, and I'm going to be kicking myself forever. 1 year ago, launched at Fanatics Fest. 3 weeks later, had my first wholesale PO from Kith Kids. By February, Kith was not just housing them in all their Kith Kids, but now they're pushing out in their Kith stores around the country. Within 2 months after that, now we actually are in every Kith around the country, not just Kith Kids. By February, we got in on Walmart.com. By March, TJ Maxx did Marshalls. And here we are 1 year later, and I just shipped out yesterday to Bergdorf Goodman.
Oh my, you didn't even tell me that. That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Until it's one of those things like until it happens, I don't want to talk about it.
Totally.
Some things, yes, because it's a matter of manifesting, but getting into Bergdorf
Big
was
deal.
a big deal. And it like took a lot of follow up and like, hey, we're going to send you the PO. And then the PO didn't come for like 8 weeks. And uh, following up, I don't want to seem like desperate with like, hey, where is it? Where is it? But finally, the PO came in and it was larger by like 40% than what I thought it was going to be. And when they got the stuffies, because we got the Michael Jordan goat stuffies, they brought those in as well, and they brought in the bath books. So they got every book, the bath books, and the stuffies, and I couldn't be happier.
Congratulations. That is such a big deal. And I will say, obviously, I've only seen the Kith Kids New York display, but from the pictures, the LA display looks sick.
Yes, well, the LA display when they first did it, when they opened the store back in maybe April, it was awesome. But then when I was in LA last month and I went there and I went to the kids section and we're in LA and they had a stack of Babe Ruth books on the shelf and the bath book. And I look around and like the girl who works there is standing there. I'm like, do you have, she doesn't know who I am. Like, do you have back stock of the rest of the books in this series? Let me go check. She comes back upstairs with all the books. I'm like, all right, we're in LA, and the only book that you have on display is the Babe Ruth book. Doesn't make any sense. Cool if I do some merchandising? She starts laughing. She's like, sure. So me and this girl just like took the shelves down and just started re-merchandising, and we did a whole we completely merchandised their whole kids section to display all the books, the stuffies, the bath books, and it looked beautiful. And she was appreciative. The merchandising director that was there, she came over, started laughing, and then I'm like, so I'm the author, and they're both like, we kind of figured that at some point,
That's amazing.
and it's been going swimmingly. Kith puts in an order probably every like 3 to 5 weeks, and working with them for over a year, I could see which books sell the best in which markets and which books sell the best in general.
I think this is a really important thing to talk about because Kith is doing a lot of legwork as far as like proof of concept, proof of the books moving, proof of you being able to be a salesman for the books themselves. And I think sometimes it's easy to think a book belongs in a bookstore, period. The end. We have had this conversation privately so many times about And I think this is your entrepreneurial background, which is, of course, what we're definitely about to dive into. I feel it coming, where, you understand how to make connections and to draw lines with different types of people and businesses and different ideas to different product and everything else, or you see a gap in a market and you understand what might need to be filled. So Kith Kids is a store where you shop for your own children. And if you're buying their clothes there, why also wouldn't you buy a book to read to them there? So reaching out to them, how did that feel that first time?
Well, if you would have asked me, if you would have asked me before I launched last June, give me three stores that you would be your dream locations for the stores to land in. Kith, if not number one, would have been number two or three. So getting in there because I know that it's a luxury lifestyle store is where I feel like my product was supposed to land and it ended up landing. And to piggyback on what you were saying, they don't do very well in bookstores. So not that they don't sell, but they sell at a snail's pace in bookstores, whereas in these lifestyle stores in Kith and other boutique kid stores, they sell very well and they merchandise them. There's this store called Silly Goose in Long Island that is now merchandising. They have the Babe Ruth book next to a Yankees onesie for the kids, and it's being able to do smart merchandising, and it's a different giftable product. It's a different product and a different mindset of the buyer that's coming in versus someone that's going into a bookstore.
Well, yes. The only thing I kept thinking about the whole time you said that is when you walk into a bookstore, you're going to buy a book. That is the only time you maybe are researching for books, want to peruse, but there is no other reason to go into a bookstore. If you are not somebody who is a reader or gifting, like you're not walking into a bookstore. And many people now are going back to the libraries. But if you go into a lifestyle store, reading is a part of lifestyle. Most people who read, 99.9% of everybody, has numerous interests and are 3D people with lots of other things going on. So if you start to think about books as a component of a lifestyle, not just books belong with readers, your entire merchandising world opens up in a different way.
Yep. And they're positioned like that. And also, I design them so that each of them kind of look like a piece of art. And I specifically kept my name and my illustrators off of the covers because I didn't want to take away from the art that is the cover. So you have to open it up to get to my name and my illustrators' names because I wanted this to be a piece of art. And so when it's on display, when it's being merchandised, it just pops and it looks like a piece of art.
It's also genius because if you're in like a clothing store or something else and the parents are shopping and they've got their kids in tow, now the kids are drawn to these instead of just feeling bored in the store or finding like a bench to hang off of or clothes to tug on. Now they've got something to distract their eye and potentially go home.
Right, which is very cool. And I hope, I've only been doing this I only launched the series a year ago. Um, and I've seen a good amount of people who are now coming back for more, and not just coming back for more. Like every time I get an order that comes in, I'm assuming that most authors, when they see that cha-ching come in from Shopify, well, actually, I mean, we could touch on that. Well, I'm sure we'll touch on this, but I do everything on my own. I do all distribution and everything. So I see when a book sells and I'm shipping it out when it sells. So I see everyone who's ordering. So when I see repeat names and different addresses, it's cool to see people who are now buying this bundle and they're shipping it here and then they're sending a bundle here. And a lot of times people are asking me, hey, this is a gift for fill in the blank. So I'm signing a lot of books to kids for their third birthday, fourth birthday, sixth birthday. Or we have what's been the go-to newborn gift. We do a stuffed animal with a bath book for like that newborn to 2 years old, which has been great.
Yeah, actually, I gifted a bundle for a first birthday recently, and we got some pictures back from the birthday boy's mom sharing the bath book on the beach and saying that it's the absolute perfect beach book because it didn't matter if it got wet. It didn't matter if it got sandy or dirty. And she was like, beach days are so different now that we have this book. And I think that's a great lesson too in it ties back to lifestyle where you're putting a book into the world, you're putting a world and a story into the world. And the way that a reader consumes it or the way a reader makes it their own, we can't predict all the different ways.
Right. And I love that. I love that. And that's just goes into the whole concept of having these lifestyle books.
Exactly. And we've gone to the NBA store together. I've seen you in a bunch of different locations really trying to hustle to get these books into places. And for the longest time from when I met you, you were operating under a brand. You were the brand, but you were operating under a brand, the Millennial Broker. I
TMB.
almost stuttered because I haven't said it in so long. But you were operating under the Millennial Broker because you are a broker, but you kept that identity even though you had other things going on too. When you had the endo bands and everything else, like you've always had the self-starters network and other pieces of sort of like, as people would call them now, side quests. It never made you stray from being called the Millennial Broker. The second you launched the GOAT series, though, you retired the Millennial Broker and became Steve Clair. What made the author role be the catalyst to change your brand?
When I first started writing the GOAT series, when I first started writing the Michael Jordan book, it was April 2024. And leading up to that, this was an idea that I had, but it was also something that at that point in my life, I was trying to look at what is something I've done in the last 15, 20 years that makes sense for me to be doing in the future. I don't like, I'm a real estate broker. Do I love real estate? No, I don't care. I don't care about floor plans. I care about people. I care about the empathetic part of the negotiation of the real estate. And I care about, and I've always wanted to write children's books. And this is something that really touched me, especially when it comes to sports. Live sports are a very big thing for me. My 4-year-old has been to over a dozen Knicks games, football, hockey, baseball, you name it. Sports are a big part of my life, and educating the youth and now teaching them about greatness, big part of my life. Why do I bring that up? So, changing my personal brand to who I am and dropping me as a broker was super important. And working under Ryan Serhant, I think also has a big impact in that. And just knowing that Ryan has all these side quests and all his side quests are umbrellaed under Ryan Serhant, the brand. So for me, being now Steve Clair, the broker, Steve Clair, the author, and also knowing that the GOAT series is going to be my future, and the future of the GOAT series has an author. It's Steve Clair. It has a creator. It's Steve Clair. It's not the Millennial Broker. The Millennial Broker was a brand, and it was fun while it lasted. It's funny the amount of people that just called me TMB, called me the Millennial Broker, and it was great, but it had to be put in the past because the future is Steve Clair.
Was that scary?
It was fun.
It was fun to shed
It was
it.
fun. Oh, it was fun to shed it. It was fun to shed it, and also like it's part of getting older.
Mm-hmm.
Getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was part of getting
Evolving.
older. It's part of evolving. It
Evolving.
was part of evolving and knowing that that is part of the past. And I learned a lot from it. It was a lot of fun. It was also a big part of brand building. So while brand building the Millennial Broker, similar skill set, brand building the GOAT series, which is the book series under the umbrella big company, GOAT Academy. So everything that comes from this ecosystem is the GOAT Academy, and the GOAT series are the books within the GOAT Academy.
Right, because a stuffed animal is not a series, it's a product of the
Yep.
academy
On
and
top of
other stuff in the works
something else much bigger that
in the
we're
work.
working on.
Um, I think everything you just said is so incredibly valuable. And, you brand built under a pseudonym, so to speak. And I almost feel like that's a protective layer in a way. And authors typically are comfortable brand building behind their book because brand building from your name can be really, really vulnerable and really, really scary, especially for someone who spends their time by themselves writing a book and then has to share this piece of their soul with a larger community for review. So, a book, though, is not an independent brand by itself. A book is a product of a brand. So, is there any sort of advice that you can share about stepping into that name identity for authors to maybe be inspired by stepping out from behind their own books?
So twofold. One, if your specific name, Steve Clair, or whether it's John Doe, Jess Sorrentino, whatever it is, if that's something that you don't fully feel comfortable, and you're never going to fully feel comfortable, whether it's your name or an alias, like until you do it and you then have reaction from your peers, your clients, your readers, until you have actual genuine reaction from people, you're going to be nervous and you're not going to know if it's the right move or the wrong move. That's just life. So when I said twofold, one, you either jump into it with your name or you do make an alias, but it has to be an alias that you feel in your gut, you feel comfortable with. When you look in the mirror, like you are this person. You are let me think of someone with a Brad Pitt's his real name. You are Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg's not her real name, but when she created that alias and she felt it, and now she forever runs with that brand, and that becomes your brand. So I actually, and I don't know if I've ever spoken anything about this. I thought about if like what if I did Claire Stevens as the author and it was and the pen and my pen name would be Claire Stevens, which is just because I have a first name last name for my name and I just switched it. Ultimately, I thought about it, but I didn't feel it. And just going with my real name felt more powerful and more real to me. And for anyone listening who's just thinking, should I go pen name or non-pen name? You feel it in your gut. You just know.
I love that. I think that's so true. And I'm really, I don't think that Claire Stevens feels like you. So I'm glad that
No.
you didn't go with that.
It was
But
just like it was a name swap, and but
yeah,
also, it was something I never thought of any other name. But it's like someone would look at that, and instinctively, it's like, oh, would it be funny if people think that it's like a female author, and
it's
then
like
it's
a
this
J.K. Rowling situation.
bingo.
So I love to say in this moment that this would be the opportunity, like as authors, you know how to write characters. And this brand building component is you stepping into your main character moment. So whether you're using your name or you're using a pen name, build a character around it. And then you put that character, you step physically into that character, embody it, and that is who you show up as. And that's what I'm hearing that you did when you shed the millennial broker and you stepped into Steve Clair and embodied who you actually are as a person to now be the author of your books, the creator of the academy, and any other potential endeavor. You're still a broker, so any other endeavor that still lives underneath.
Right, and changing really elevating Steve Clair as not my alias, but my name, and now my brand is now Steve Clair, not the Millennial Broker. Um, being more, having more knowledge on, let's say, sports greatness was a big part of that. So being able to have the conversation about the book. So I write biographies about the greatest athletes of all time. So being able to know stats, facts, and be completely not just conversational, but um, being able to, it's kind of how I might prepare for a negotiation, preparing for a debate. Why Jordan over LeBron? Why Messi over Ronaldo? Why Serena over Djokovic or Federer as the GOAT? And just being able to be informed about everything and anything within that category became a big part of who I am. So if you are a sci-fi writer, if you are a rom-com writer, just being informed about the ins and outs of what that genre means to other people and being able to be an expert in that field is super important.
we have to like put that
Yeah.
on a quote somewhere
And
because
that will make you feel more comfortable with, this is who I am. I'm an expert, especially if you
yes.
are an author, like whether you have a book series or you have one single book. The the contents of your book is something that you should be an expert in, and not just about your book, but the entire aura around it, and being able to be completely conversational about that and other books and other things within that aura will help you feel super comfortable with who you are.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. That's such an amazing way to put it. And I think the underlying thing that I'm continuing to hear is what we actually started the conversation with, which is books exist in real life and in everyday lifestyle. And by shedding that skin and by becoming an expert in everything related to the biography of sharing the greatest athletes of all time's stories in a format for children to also learn and be inspired and grow with, you get to participate in larger cultural conversations that will then come back and inspire the books. So the books inspire what you're paying attention to, but the world is also inspiring what's taking place inside the books and allowing you to have greater conversations. And, we just had a humongous sports year so far. I mean, we're only halfway through, but it's been a huge sports year so far. So
2026 has been the most special of years ever. Summer 2026, there's got
huge.
to be documentaries about this in years to come.
Absolutely. And I think, we'll get into what that means for the GOAT series, because I'm sure you have a running list of GOATs to start to include as the series grows. But then there is also something called time sensitivity and capitalizing on cultural relevancy. So we'll talk about how that fits in a minute. But I,
Keyword right there, cultural relevance.
there you go. And I think that's exactly what I was just going to say is, it's really cool when you decide to be that expert. You become that main character, you step into your expertise, and then that's the worldview you're looking through and looking for. All of a sudden, the concept of quote unquote posting or going into a store and asking them if they're interested in reading your book or buying your book, it becomes a little bit easier because you're embodying that entire mindset and physicality, and all that then matters is having conversations, whether they're like peripheral conversations or direct to the story itself about the world that makes that book come to life.
Yep. And to piggyback on that, just seeing the Lionel Messi book
Mm-hmm.
with the World Cup going on has been above and beyond performing better than all six other books in the series.
So
Like,
cool.
not just like, I sell a few books a day on Amazon, and throughout, from just seeing the books coming in direct orders through my site, and then just the wholesale orders that have been coming in, like, because of World Cup, the Lionel Messi book has probably outperformed everything else by like at least 4 or 5x
That makes sense to me because if parents are
combined.
watching it and older siblings are watching it, then the younger children are definitely curious. They're like, what's on the screen? What's everyone talking about?
Yeah, and also looking at cultural relevance, out of my 7 titles, Lionel Messi is the only one who's still performing. He's the only
True.
one who's still playing. So while Serena did a comeback last month for I think a match or two, um, she's still not like in the spotlight the way that
Mm-hmm.
Lionel Messi is in the spotlight. We'll see how that goes in. I don't know when this is going to air, but we'll see how this goes when the U.S. Open
Mm-hmm.
comes about and tennis is now in front of our faces for a two,
True.
3 week span. If that elevates the Serena Williams books, like I could tell you this, the Wayne Gretzky books did really well back in January and February when U.S. hockey was doing really well in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think that the show Heated Rivalry
Yep.
had an impact on Wayne Gretzky sales because that show was booming in January, and Wayne Gretzky sales were booming in January.
I think that has to do with just also like familial relativity where, if somebody in one household or in a friend group or something is watching something or absorbing something or really diving into a world, that's what they want to talk about. It's immersive. They want to be a part of that in every way possible. So if they've got young kids or gifts coming up and hockey's on their mind, it's an easy trigger to pull.
Yeah, and that's like talking about my series, but more importantly, any authors that are putting out their series, it's what are other products that are similar to yours?
Hmm.
What are other brands that are similar to yours? And I say that because we talked about other side quests that I had, and when I had my other business where I was selling years ago, where I was selling fitness products, I didn't look at how other fitness products were being sold. When I was doing copy and looking how to sell my resistance bands, I would look at, all right, what's the best golf ball company?
Hmm.
Because and how do they sell their golf balls? How do they market them? And what stores do they go into? Because I'm looking at my fitness products. I don't want to compete with other fitness products. I want to be the best of this product. So how does the best of that product pitch to their client? And for authors, it's getting into the same world as other products that might be parallel to yours that aren't the same product.
I couldn't agree more. When we keep our blinders on and only compare to different books or to other authors, we are actually doing ourselves a really big disservice. We have to open our blinders or take our blinders off, open our eyes, and not only pay attention to everything you just said, but also what else the readers care about. So if your reader is somebody who loves sports, I'm sure they also have a city affinity or something like that. So you'll want to then make sure the book of the goat that takes place in their city or played for their city is front and center in their stories. Like what you were saying about Babe Ruth being front and center in LA was a little bit of a silly push because Babe is obviously a New York athlete. So it's keeping that worldview of like comparing to product, comparing different industry, and also just making sure you're meeting the right readers where the readers spend their time.
Amen.
So I think that comes from our entrepreneurial minds, but it's definitely something I'm really hoping that more authors can learn to step into. Um, but along those lines and along the lines of cultural relevancy, do we have any exciting goats to think about coming out anytime soon?
Yeah, of course we do. Um, Speaking of cultural relevance, uh, and this is after a year of kind of market research and seeing what sells, what doesn't sell, and knowing and just seeing how well the messy books are doing. About a week ago, I started doing a mock-up on what the Jalen Brunson book might look like, and last weekend I started writing it. So
Exciting.
it, each book it takes yes, they're children's books. They're not that long. It's 12 spreads, but there's a formula of which I use. And the Jalen Brunson book is in the works. I'm hoping we're in August. I'm hoping I can get it done by like around the start of the season, around um, holiday time, or hopefully before Black Friday. Um, I want your opinion on this, and this is also for other authors. What are your thoughts on doing a Kickstarter where it's here are the seven titles that we have, and now we're doing the Jalen Brunson book and being able to do pre-orders through a Kickstarter, or if not a Kickstarter, something similar, and do it so for pre-orders.
My question is why Kickstarter?
Well, it's uh some sort of pre-order concept, or would the pre-order concept just be on the website? I just feel like having on a Kickstarter, get more eyeballs.
I mean, my gut reaction is just directly through your website and through your community and social channels. Because with a Kickstarter, since they're campaign oriented, typically a Kickstarter would be better if you were just launching the series and you wanted to have like some funding to get the series up and running. Just because oftentimes with Kickstarters, you lose if you don't hit the goals you've set, you then lose everything. So it's you don't get that payout unless you've hit the goal that you've set.
Give me an example of like
So if you set a goal to make $1,000 on Kickstarter from like book 7 of the Goat series, and you fall short by $5 because you didn't reach that goal, it's a wash.
huh. So, but essentially, let's say we made the goal. $10,000 and it got to 9,800. It's 200 short. I could essentially just pay that $200 because we're going to production anyway.
Yes,
This
you
is ju-
could. You could
this is
100% do that. You can
right.
make an investment in as
So
well.
my thought on this would just be uh to have a platform for millions of thousands, if not millions of people who otherwise might not see the product with
Yes,
it just being on
honestly,
my site.
if you're comfortable with absorbing that risk, then I think it's a great thing to try. And something I think goes again back to our entrepreneurial spirits is that we're willing to put the risk in. And you never know until you try. You've done 6 books without. You can try one, see how it feels, see how it goes. But just I would definitely just be aware of that fine print. If you're going to take a Kickstarter route, beware of the fine print and really read it through when you're setting up your campaign. And if you are comfortable with absorbing any sort of discrepancy in risk, it doesn't hurt to give it a try.
Noted. And how do you feel about authors using Kickstarter for when they're launching?
It's actually it's becoming more and more popular, especially even some smaller indie presses are coming out via Kickstarter now. So it could be expensive, as you guys know, to bring a book into a world, especially if you're doing it all by yourself. So I have seen more and more publishing types coming out through Kickstarter. It sort of just helps even if it's just for yourself. Sometimes it helps with that whole proof of concept idea where you're seeing like, okay, if this many people are willing to back me and back my vision and back my world, then it kind of can help just give you that sort of extra energy and push to keep the ball rolling.
And I'll tell you this, I had thought about Kickstarter off the bat, but to go to what we were talking about with like the nerves of an alias change and the nerves of like diving into something that you haven't done before, I think there's that fear of what if it doesn't hit?
It could
Like
be
what
very scary.
I had this goal. What if it doesn't hit? And my dream, my vision, my passion project that I want to I want to make my reality in my business. What if I don't hit that goal? That's going to be extremely defeating. And maybe it means that my goal and my dream is wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, no one is going to support our dreams and our goals more than we are. So we do have to keep that front and center because I feel like every founder story that we hear, like Steve Jobs in his garage, all of those things, it's like everybody said no, 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 but you have to trust yourself and you have to be willing to take a bet on yourself. And if you can't make that bet on yourself, you cannot expect other people to bet on you too. Something for authors, if you're considering a Kickstarter or some sort of funding to get off the ground, you need consistent visibility because you cannot just go blanket out there. And even though Kickstarter has a huge community, they're going to research you before they invest in your page, right? They're going to want to know who you are. And if you haven't done some of this brand work, like you just nailed it on the head when you said the conversion from name and the Kickstarter at the same time felt like a lot. It's so much better that you didn't do that all at once because then you're asking a lot of narratives to compete for topmost attention in a very, very short attention span world. So, like, slow and steady wins the race.
Yep.
A
And
cool thing with Kickstarter, though, I will say really quickly, is you can tier your investments. So that means, like, if somebody invested, let's say, $50, maybe that means they get a signed copy of book 7 and a stuffy. If they invest $100, maybe they get 3 books and something else. Or, maybe they get their name. If it's a $1,000 investment, maybe they get their name in the acknowledgments. Like, you get to make it more and more appealing with each tier.
we could even do like so. I could even do like if you do $1,000 investment, you get a signed book and tickets to Knicks versus Lakers.
Exactly. So you and I can go on with this all day. We can do that
Oh, that's
privately,
so smart.
but that's a
Yeah.
great thing with Kickstarter too. And that is also a lot easier to do when you really know who your readers are. And honestly, this is a great way to wrap this episode because the best tiers and the best way to do some sort of interesting pre-order campaign is A, you know your main character, you. B, you know your expertise, you become like the person that everyone's curious about to participate in those conversations. And C, you know what those readers care about outside of the one thing you're talking about in your book. Because now you get to bring that full world into view for them and offer them more.
And you know what? A big thing for me when I was looking at doing Kickstarter and got discouraged was not really knowing how to make a sexy Kickstarter page. But I'm now going to have a conversation with Claude and
Mm-hmm.
chat with Claude and have it build out for me a sexy Kickstarter page.
Yep. And I think that as far as Kickstarter is concerned, they make it a little bit plainer because it's sort of equal opportunity until you get to those offers, where it's like you can customize it to an extent. Um, but then like what really will make you shine is what you're offering for your investors.
Love that.
So I'm very curious to see how it comes out. When it's done, you can share it with us and we can share it everywhere. But until then, why don't you leave us with where people can come and find you and support the GOAT series?
The goat series.kids. Just repeat that again. The goat series.kids. That's everything. The goat series.kids. Instagram, website, TikTok, everything. When building out the IP, wanted to make sure that there was fluidity between everything. The website, the socials, the goat series.kids. That's it.
There you go. Thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure as always. And everyone else, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Go be great.
Got it.